In a world with artificial intelligence, how do we transform education? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Daniel Lopez, and this is the AI Education Conversation, where we explore the opportunities, risks, and impacts of AI across education. If you'd like to join the conversation, check out the AIeducationconversation.com. Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I've checked in. As you all might know, the education landscape here in the United States is in a season of whiplash and transition from significant events like the growth of AI, a changing funding landscape, and a presidential transition which is impacting education at all levels. The dust has not settled, and I don't expect it to for a while, and as such, my capacity to post weekly episodes won't be possible for the foreseeable future. My AI learning journey, just as I imagine is true for many of you, continues to come in seasons, and I do expect to continue posting episodes in the future, though not on a regular cadence. I love connecting with listeners from our community, so if you've listened to any of the episodes we've explored together over this 2 year journey, feel free to reach out. That being said, I'm really excited to bring you all into a great conversation with Ksenia Sokolyanskaya and Katharina from Fobizz, a well known education tech company in German speaking countries and vastly growing in reputation around the world. In addition to their library of education courses for users, they've curated a strong base of AI tools that are aligned to rigorous European standards for data security. In our conversation, we explore their perspectives, given they're connecting with education stakeholders on AI across the world. We dive into data security and the potential for AI assistance for educators. We've also talked about how they've cracked the code on creating safer AI tools for students. If you're interested in learning more from myself, Ksenia and Katharina, I'm also pleased to announce we will be hosting a live webinar on March 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Our conversation will explore the capabilities of the Fobizz platform for college access and higher education professionals. This webinar was hosted by the AI and College Admissions Group. I've also created 2 courses for users of the AI education conversation, one which explores AI detectors and one which explores how to leverage AI images in your daily work. Both of those are available for free on the Fobizz platform. I will post the webinar registration and the links to my Fobizz courses in the podcast description. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ksenia and Katharina. If you're interested in my takeaways, sign up for the conversation at the AIeducationconversation.com. I share all show notes with my community 12 hours before sharing with my social media networks. If you want to continue supporting the podcast, a rating, review, share on social media, or recommendation to a colleague go a long way in helping to amplify our space and host bigger conversations. Humans at the heart of education. Enjoy the episode. Ksenia, Katharina, let me formally welcome you both to the AI education conversation. Really happy to have you today.
Thank you so much. We're really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. We're really excited to be part of this conversation with you.
Yeah, and I know, our paths have already crossed quite a bit over the last semester, and we're just bringing this audience into some of the collaborations we've had. But would love to just start first with who you both are, some of the work that you do, and how you're entering this space.
Sure. So I'll start. My name is Ksenia, and I actually just joined Fobizz around a year ago when Fobizz decided to expand internationally. 2 words about Fobizz. It is the leading platform for professional development and digital tools for educators in German-speaking countries. So we have quite a high usage inside Germany, and the thoughts were, well, if over half the German teachers have done trainings with Fobizz, unlike them, and if over a third of German teachers are actively using Fobizz, maybe it's time to look beyond German borders and look at English-speaking countries that will give us so much more exposure and a broader audience. And that's why I joined the company, and it's been a really fun ride so far.
Yeah, hi, my name is Katharina, and I worked as a teacher for 8 years in Germany and abroad. Was IB coordinator for a while and wrote a couple of school books. And then my journey brought me to Fobizz as well, where I'm content director, and I basically work with authors to get more amazing courses, more PD on our platform. I grew up in Germany, but now I live in the US.
And I did the opposite. I grew up in the US and I live in Germany now.
So trading places a little bit there, huh? Ksenia, I remember when we first talked maybe about 6 months ago, you explained this to me, but just for our American audience here, Fobizz, it means like training in German. I forget what the semantics is there.
Yeah, so Fobizz, it's a short version of the plural of Fortbildungen, which is the German word for professional development, continuous education. So that was kind of a play on words back when Fobizz was founded in 2018, and it was founded with the focus of digital professional development courses. So that was how it started back in 2018 and grew from there. Because after the courses started, teachers said, well, this is great. The courses are great. Thank you for teaching us these digital skills, but we still have to go to 20 different websites to do our lesson prep and everything else that we want to do. And then Phobos said, okay, no problem. We heard you loud and clear, and put out a suite of digital tools that would meet 90% of day to day needs of teachers. And then, of course, in November 2022, we all know that the world changed with the explosion of ChatGPT on the scene. So Phobos reacted quickly and not only integrated AI into the course catalog, but also started building out a whole suite of AI tools for educators.
Yeah, so that was gonna be my next question, which is, I know you all are really grounded in professional development in these courses, and obviously I've been really excited to collaborate with you on that front with some of the courses that I've been able to produce, and I've also been able to check out a couple. I know, Carly Dilo, who's a former guest of the conversation, she had a couple, and I was able to watch hers, and there I just saw you all publish this one on podcasting that I was like, "Ooh, I gotta check that one out. Gotta stay sharp on my craft here." So, definitely a lot of great courses that I think could be really relevant for a lot of folks in technology and education. And what I'm hearing you say is that it sounded like there was expanded needs from teachers, and this is why you all really started to enter this AI space.
Absolutely. I mean, I think with everything that Phobos does, it's not about us deciding what's best for everybody out there. It's about us responding to teacher needs and the evolving landscape of education. So we stay in very close touch with teachers day to day. Not only do a lot of our employees, many of my colleagues are actually former teachers or current teachers who are doing something part time for Phobos, which of course really gives us this insight from an educator's perspective into our day to day work. But in addition to that, every time we put out something new, we have a test group of teachers. We make sure we get their opinion. We make sure they're part of the development process. We in no way want to be what we've heard on the internet referred to as a room of tech bros that decides what's best for teachers out there. That's not going to be the case. We're always going to have teachers at the center of the solution, making sure that whatever we build, whatever courses we put out there, whatever tools we put out there, really meeting the teacher's needs.
And as you've created two amazing courses with us already, you know that our focus is really on what do educators need? What can we do to make the courses as close to their lives as possible? And what will they actually benefit from? And what will the students benefit from? Because there's no use in, like when I was a teacher, we had to do a certain number of hours of PD, and they just said, do whatever. And there was a catalog with a few courses. And if none of them really responded to your interest, then you just had to go to something and you had to go all the way there and it was inconvenient. It was in the evenings when you had other things to do. So the idea is to offer bite-sized professional development, offer asynchronous courses and add exercises to them. So it's not just you staring at a screen for an hour, but actually getting really hands-on exercises and experimenting with this. And almost all of our authors and most of our authors are teachers or former teachers or experts in the fields in education. So that's where we get the expertise from. And we don't tell them what to do. We work with what excites them and what they're passionate about. And I think that's really part of our recipe of success.
Yeah, there's some features that you all have on your platform that I think for schools that are looking for a safe, more comprehensive way to take the plunge into exploring what AI in a school-based context could look like, that I really want to talk to you all about. But I think before we get there, the other piece that I'm really curious about is both of you are very uniquely positioned to talk about, I think, some of the broader themes and conversations from AI in education based on the roles that you all assume, right? From the fact that you have the opportunity to talk to teachers all over the country or all over the world, I guess in this case too, given the German context as well as like other stakeholders. And so I guess like my initial question is beyond some of the themes which I'll ask about in just a second here is so you all have been adding tools, and Katharina, I think I heard you said a lot of the tools that you all have decided to add are really driven by what teachers ultimately like need or want. And I think like a question or something I think I hear oftentimes in spaces is like there's this wondering to what extent educators are actually using AI tools. Are you finding that since you have been adding these tools, like, are you actually finding that a lot of folks are actually using and leveraging and engaging with these tools? Are you finding it's more of like a slow uptick? What are you finding for like some of that trajectory? And what might that tell us about how quickly teachers and education practitioners are actually using AI tools?
So, from a data perspective, we of course look at usage statistics for our tools to make sure that it's not just something that's sitting out there and no one is actually responding to. So, I'll talk about it from like the technical usage data's perspective, and then maybe Katerina can add it from an actual teacher user perspective. So, when we put out a tool, we make sure that it's being used, and if it's not, then we make sure that we make the necessary adjustments and see, okay, where is it not meeting the needs? And I think Fobizz was in a bit of a unique position in the market because even though worldwide there's quite a bit of suspicion and resistance to new things such as AI and maybe a little bit of mistrust, I think we had a lot of the trust of the teachers from before. And when we brought out these tools, it was again in response to their needs. And when we added AI to these tools, it was again to just meet the evolving needs of the educational landscape. And so with that, we actually do see a lot of usage of the tools because the teachers are also part of the development process. We know that we're not putting out something that is completely irrelevant. That is, of course, critical to the whole development process of the tools. But in our observation, yes, some tools are more popular than others for sure. And we see that. And that also helps us focus okay, well, if we're going to add new features, which tools are we going to focus on? But the tools are definitely being used. They're being used actively. And we see that with the feedback because teachers are so used to being open in conversation with us. We're constantly getting requests, hey, can you maybe expand this feature? Is this a possible addition to this tool? Because we're getting these requests, we know that it's not just the usage statistics that we're seeing. Teachers are actually using it, seeing the benefits of it, and thinking of new ways that the tools can benefit them.
Yeah, what from my experience, what I've noticed is there's a mix of excitement and caution where some people you show them a tool and the immediate reaction is like, where have you been all my life? This is amazing. Let me use this right now every day. And then obviously there's also the aspect of just worry about this, what's happening to my data, what's happening to my students' data, how can I work with this? And will this actually benefit me in my everyday life? Or is it just another thing that I have to work through that I have to include now? And it's just adding to this very long list of things that I already have to do. And I think that's where, first of all, our PD courses come in because this is more of a holistic approach. We tell you how to use the tools. We don't just like throw them your way and say good luck. We kind of try to really make sure that you know how they work, and we try to be as transparent as possible as well. Not just concerning data, but every step on the way, we try to work with the community of educators that are using our platform. And so I think the acceptance and the excitement about tools has actually been very high, and people have been using them in a lot of different ways, and they also share the teaching materials that they create with our tools. And it's really fascinating to see what people come up with, how they come up with use cases that we never considered before, and now they're out there and other teachers can benefit from them as well. So I think it's a really, really great community and a really good conversation as well.
Yeah, it's helpful, and so as a part of these same conversations and spaces you all have with folks, are you noticing any other themes or conversations? Like, what do those conversations look like? And I'm also curious, you've been in this space, I think, for a while now. Are you seeing the conversations evolve at all? Like, have they changed from what they look like 6 months ago?
Absolutely. I think AI was just the biggest game changer for a lot of these conversations because before we were talking about digital efficiency in the classroom and also the ability for teachers to teach remotely during times of COVID, because that was when the digital skills really needed a fast push for the teaching community. A lot of teachers had never done any kind of remote teaching, and all of a sudden they were forced to with very little support in many areas. I mean, again, can't speak for every school. A lot of schools were supporting their educators, but there were many who I've talked to who basically said we were left to our own devices, had to respond very quickly. And this is not just at the school level, this was at the university levels as well. This was kind of hitting everybody across the world, which of course really gave this push into and added to the curiosity and the need to really engage with these tools and embrace them and kind of make them part of the day to day teaching process. But in the post COVID world, AI really shook up the landscape. And with that, we definitely see an evolving conversation because it started out with, okay, what is this? Let me understand it. Can it help me with administrative tasks? And now the conversation has evolved a lot beyond that. And one of the biggest things that we talked about or that was talked about at the UNESCO conference last week was the UNESCO Digital Education Week in Paris. And you had leaders from all over the world talking about AI and sustainable green education. And so UNESCO has 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and the fourth one has to do with quality of education. So there was a lot of discussion in AI. It was one of the biggest themes of the week. And before we get into the concerns, the opportunities that everybody talked about was about equitable education, personalized education. Of course, alleviating administrative tasks for teachers. That's always part of the conversation because the less time teachers spend on administrative tasks, the more time they have to dedicate to their students. And that is, of course, the goal at the end of the day. But the conversation has been evolving to all of the opportunities that we see around AI. At the same time, there are a lot of conversations about the risks. We still get the conversations about cheating, though I think those are becoming less prevalent. I think the majority are now recognizing, majority of people who've really gotten involved in that space are recognizing, you know what, maybe we should talk less about how students use AI to cheat and just make AI part of the process, make students the co-creators rather than just consumers of AI. And at the same time, we teach them responsible use, and cheating is going to happen no matter what. AI, no AI, digital tools, no digital tools. It's always going to be there. Let's not focus on that. Let's focus on where we can really break new ground using AI in education rather than like focusing on these small corner cases that are probably not going to advance us very far. Another big concern is around security and data privacy. That is something that we are hearing from lots of districts in the US. In Europe, that has always been a concern. I mean, we are GDPR land, so that is always a big topic of conversation. But securing the privacy of the users, that is, of course, huge, especially that of the students. So that stays at the top of the conversations. A lot of people are discussing that one thing that is necessary is education around AI. So making sure that teachers are trained, they understand what they're working with. We're not just tossing a bunch of tools at them and saying, have fun, enjoy. We're really guiding them. We're giving them the frameworks that they need. We're giving them the training that they need so they feel comfortable, understand the risks, understand the opportunities, and can make the best out of it.
And I think I've also noticed in your last episodes on your show, even that AI literacy has become a much, much bigger topic of conversation, training teachers, but also then taking it to the classroom. As Ksenia said, letting students be part of it, shaping this conversation and adding their voices to this conversation, I think is really important to actually understand where I comes in and then go beyond just, okay, it can help me create the things that I've always done this way, but go to more innovative explorations as well. And I think Ksenia also mentioned this earlier, equitable access. What are the opportunities that we get thanks to AI to actually make learning more relevant for our students? I think I had a school book that my mother had used. It was used for such a long time at the same school. And you could tell, and it does not motivate you, does not excite you to have to see your own mother's name written in the front of the book. Um, so I think AI gives us the opportunity to actually customize teaching materials and content, and come up with new ideas and make them relevant for learners. We can create so much more in terms of problem-based learning, projects, individualized learning, helping individual students just by making things more relevant and more interesting to them. So I think a lot of the conversation is also going a bit more in those ways. One, the AI literacy question, and the other, how can I actually create something new with this rather than a new approach of to things that we've always done this way.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing so much the way these conversations have evolved. And Katharina, to your point, it feels affirming for me to feel like I'm still on the pulse of it with how this conversation has evolved too, because I know from my perspective, I've really been trying to push us past the academic integrity piece that that you mentioned earlier, Ksenia, and really getting into other explorations around. And I do think to your point, AI literacy very critical. AI use cases. I know a lot of the like big thought leaders right now are really pushing like the AI tutor approach and use case, which I would say I'm excited about, but I also think I'm hoping we can extend beyond that, right? Like I'm hoping it doesn't just become AI tutor use cases or bust, right? And I think even some of the pieces I heard you saying really excite me about getting folks to think more broadly and expansively about this technology and how it can really redefine education. Ksenia, you said something earlier that I would love to spend some more time in, which is the privacy laws. I think when I look at some of the big headlines for AI in education from this past summer, probably some of the biggest uh-oh moments were about data security. And I'm thinking specifically at this moment about the LAUSC case where, a lot of folks know at this point publicly they partner with a company seem to be having some unethical practices in place that was exposing some of the data, the student data that they have as they were trying to build out this AI tool. And I will say that one of my initial reactions and in the first time that I met both of you and I was learning about the Fobizz platform is that you all actually have some student facing pieces of your AI tools. And at first, my initial reaction was, "Oh wow, I'm surprised. Like that feels like a risky thing to do." But I think as I was talking to you both and learning about it, it seems like as you were describing earlier, this isn't been something you all have been thinking about for the last 6 months. It's something that a standard you've been held to for years, right? Being a German company, and I'd love to just sit in that for a little while here. So I guess my specific question is, again, you've had to navigate like very strict privacy laws being a company in the European Union at the time that this technology was emerging. Just curious, like what have you learned? And just keep in mind, Ksenia, I am not a digital security expert. So please, to the best that you can, try to explain this to me like I'm 10.
Well, I'll I'll keep it very basic. In general, all around Europe, we have had for a handful of years these GDPR laws, which are all about data privacy and data security. At the very base level, it just means that a lot of data cannot be stored outside of the European Union. That's like one piece of it. The other piece of it has to do a lot. There's a whole chunk that has to do with marketing and emailing and opt ins and opt outs. We won't get into that. But the way you treat data, where you store it, how you store it, that is the biggest piece. And that, of course, affects us. Now, with this in mind, a lot of the large global players cannot enter a German classroom and probably a lot of other European classrooms as well, because they are not meeting these laws to in the way that a German school would allow them to be implemented or used in the classroom. So for us, it was important that when we put these tools out, these tools were GDPR compliant and they were something that teachers could use, not just for prep at home, not just something that they do and then print out and bring to their classroom, but something they could actually use in the classroom without a lot of security concerns. Now with AI in the game, that of course added a whole other layer of complexity for us. But as you already know, but for everyone who's maybe hasn't met us before, doesn't know anything about Phobos, the way we work with data is anything that is sent to AI providers is 100% anonymized. So it's coming from Phobos. The AI providers do not know which country you're from, which city you're from, who you are. It is just coming from Phobos. Second, if you accidentally put in some personal information or something that resembles personal information in any language, I mean, name, address, and with the names, it could be intentional because it's part of the story you're writing with AI, in which case, okay, but you're going to get a warning from us just to make sure you weren't asleep at the wheel and accidentally put something in. So we're going to give a little pop up and say, hey, this looks like personal data. Are you sure you want to enter it? If it's part of your story, you override the pop up. You say, yes, yes, please continue, no problem. But if you were asleep at the wheel and accidentally put in your kid's name when you were trying to get birthday party ideas, we're just going to stop you for a second to make sure you're not putting it out there. But even if you do accidentally put in something that you shouldn't have, and all of our filters don't catch it and it goes in somewhere, the good news is nothing that comes from Fobizz to AI providers is used for model training. So that I think already gives a lot of people peace of mind, because it is not that something you're entering is going to end up somewhere for the rest of your life. That is not the case. Obviously, the AI providers see the prompt that you're entering into the AI system. You get a response, but whatever you're putting in there is not going to be used for model training. The data is not going to sit out there forever. That is, of course, just general basics. With students specifically, that's a whole other ballgame. We don't want student data at all. We don't want their emails. We don't want their names. We don't want to know any of that. But as a teacher, you need to know that. So the way teachers use our classroom feature, which we call shared spaces, they basically generate a list of alphanumeric codes and QR codes for their students and distribute those. You as a teacher, you will know that code number 1 is associated with Jenny, code number 2 is associated with Alex, and so on. But you're the only one who knows that. The students log in, they log in anonymously. You decide as an educator which tools you will turn on for your students. You will decide what is appropriate for their training level, their grade level, the class. It can be something that you customized within our system that's maybe a tutor for a certain subject. It may be something that you created as part of an exercise or an assignment. Maybe you're using AI for a certain exam or test with a group of students. But you as a teacher are monitoring the whole time. More than that, the students have a little notice when they log in saying, your teacher can view your work at any time. And this is not to necessarily play big brother, but it's so you can check their work, see if they're struggling, help them out, and at the same time, kind of see their progress. All of this, it's what we do is we put the teacher at the heart of the solution. So we make sure that the teacher has the power to decide what is appropriate for my students. How will I use this? For how long will I use this? And at the end of the day, the students have the ability to learn and experiment with these tools in a safe and secure environment.
Catherine, do you have anything to add there?
Think you've already mentioned most of the important aspects. Yeah, the takeaways basically, we do not collect data, we don't work with data, and we also don't pass it on for other places to use. And especially when it comes to student data, we work quite closely with the experts and also the regulators in Germany to make sure that everything is absolutely safe. Um, and it's been working really well. It's been really successful. And because, as Ksenia said earlier, we enjoy a lot of trust from our user base, we want to take a really thoughtful and careful approach when developing these tools and also making them accessible to students. And working with AI, we additionally provide AI literacy teaching materials for educators so that they can also actually, before entering this entire space and giving the students access to our tools, they can also take a step back and first talk to them about what this means. I'm a I'm really much in very much in favor of developing AI policies together with the students. I think I've mentioned this before. Include them in the conversation. See how they already are engaging with it. Are they aware of what is happening with their data? What else might be interesting to them? What would they like to learn about? Where is AI already a big part of their everyday life? So these are all questions that I think are very interesting to discuss with your students, depending on their age, obviously, and take into the classroom. And in order to support teachers to do that, we, for example, also offer certification training, which is free. It's a 6-week course that will start this October for the first time in English. We've done this in German a few times before and have over 2,000 teachers who already completed the course successfully. And it's basically with the intention to give as many teachers as possible access to information about AI, give them the tools that they can safely use with their students without having to worry about data security. Everything is GDPR compliant, and also give them a safe space to experiment, to ask questions, to engage with this topic and with the different tools. So for now, we already have signups from over 35 countries for the training that starts in October, which I'm so excited about. This is going to create a whole new conversation. This is going to create a whole new network. And I'm really, really looking forward to talking to all these people about their experience with AI and how they use it and also connect them with each other. I think we can all learn a lot from just understanding how AI is integrated in teaching all around the world. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, do you
Absolutely.
want
I
to add
think
something
it's
else?
going,
Yeah.
yes, I think it's going to be really exciting because just coming directly from the UNESCO Educational Week, where you had representation from all over the world, it's very interesting to see how the conversations have evolved and how they're in many ways very similar needs despite very different circumstances, but at the same time, different ways of looking at things, different ideas. And one of the things that we're really excited about from this last week is Heng Mao, who is the head of technology and AI for education at UNESCO. He presented not only the student competency framework, but the brand new teacher competency framework that UNESCO has put out. And this is the first global framework that is out there. Because over the years, he mentioned that a lot of the ministers are all in agreement that teachers need support, teachers need education, teachers need training. But at the end of the day, out of 293 countries that they surveyed before this framework was put into place, only 7 had frameworks. So it's clear that there is this need, there's this void. Now, this is a framework, it's not a law, but it still gives everybody a base to start with, a base to work off. And having this for both one for teachers and one for students, I think is a great tool that most schools and districts can really take and run with. They can, of course, adapt it to their needs as they want to, but this gives such a great baseline to responsible and secure use of AI while still not hindering any of the opportunities that may come from using it.
Yeah, I think that last piece you mentioned, Ksenia, really resonates here in the United States, even as an example. We know like only about half of the states, maybe if that, maybe just a little bit less, actually have a statewide AI guidance in place. And so I think there's such a hunger from the broader education landscape, at least here in the United States, for guidance, right? And having things such as specific frameworks, guardrails, information that they can take to really think about what their vision and their overall approach to artificial intelligence in their school district is going to look like over the next couple of years. And I think what I really appreciate is there's obviously a lot of states doing this work and that have helped us. But I think again, having some of these frameworks at a broader scale that are including more stakeholders than just our country, it's really thinking of a global perspective on how we might approach this. I think really brings a credibility that I think schools will feel really excited about as they're thinking about the types of competencies that they may want their teachers and their students to be thinking about as it relates to the intersection of these things here.
Absolutely.
Katharina, you look like you wanted to jump in. I don't know if I go ahead.
No, I just get really excited about teaching more people, reaching more people, and making them part of this conversation. I feel um, in a lot of ways, some people may have felt, I don't want to say left out, but not have had the confidence to actually join this conversation and be part of it. And I think a lot of the reason for that is that a lot of these, especially AI images that we create, okay, the classroom of the future, this is what it looks like. And everybody has their own laptop or a tablet and they basically talking to robots all day long. That is not really what we're aiming for. And it's also you don't need that in order to work successfully with AI. And giving people the confidence and the tools and the competencies to actually make use of AI in a way that makes sense to them in their environment, even if you're a teacher in a classroom where nobody has access to their own devices or internet may be spotty or your school just can't afford that kind of environment, you can still work with this and you can still talk to your students about it. It might still be very exciting and interesting conversation for them. So that is something that I find very important to mention here, that it's not something that is far out there. It's not something that should be left to this one bubble of people that keep on talking about it. But no, it's something that everybody can benefit from in a way that works for them.
Yeah, I think without going too far down the rabbit hole of those images of classrooms of laptops, which I agree with you. I think if that's the definition of education that we're working towards, I don't want to be a part of that. I'm not signing up to go that way. And some of those images I think make me really sad. But at the same time, I think as you're describing, there is also this like broader sense of curiosity of, okay, if it's not that, then what? Right? What is it? And I think to your point, there is such a tremendous opportunity ahead of us for us to collectively paint that picture and decide what that's going to look like, from the teachers to ed tech partners to the students, right? And ensuring that they obviously get to really define and drive this experience as well. But I feel like if we are wanting to leverage technology in a really effective way, there's obviously laptops, devices are going to be important, but we should also not forget the opportunity of, well, when we bring people together, let's bring them together. Let's not bring everybody together to then separate them with their devices in that way as well. So just I think that point really resonates. Um, Want to go back and ask a couple of technical questions about, I think, the really game changing feature that I think you all have. And I know that in prior conversations I've shared that with you. I think in what I've been hearing from folks in many conversations that I've been a part of is, as we've alluded to, the student application of AI probably feels like one of the riskiest elements of this for school districts at this given moment in time. But what I appreciate, I think, about your approach is you're saying what I think I really heard you say, Ksenia, and then Katharina, I think you affirmed this, was like, one of our like broadest strategies here, in addition to obviously meeting just this really high rigorous standard from the European Union, is as much as possible, we just don't even want to put ourselves in a situation where we're going to be exposed to this by like not collecting any type of PII data, right? Not encouraging folks to use it, not using it to train. And I think that that tactic feels like a really strong approach that I think a lot of schools will be excited to get behind, right? Just not putting ourselves even in a situation where we're trying to collect or expose any type of personal data in that way. And then I think coupled with that, Katharina, what you were mentioning of like, well, that's like one layer to it, but that's not the only thing. It also has to come with the literacy, the training teachers to ensure that they have conversations, to ensure that we are actually teaching them how to very effectively use these tools, things to look out for, things that we need to align on, in addition to making sure that we are providing guardrails around all of the features and as much as we can with the platform. And then, so I think to ask a couple of technical questions here about that. So one thing I didn't hear, which I was curious about, there may be some very excited teachers interested in jumping on and trying out some of the shared space features after this call. Are all students able to access it? Does that 13 or older regulation apply to these tools as well? Is it something different? Who is eligible for this?
Everybody's eligible for this. So teachers can register for an account tomorrow, today for free and try it all out. When they set up a shared space for their students, obviously some things are going to be more appropriate for certain age groups than others, and that is up to the teacher to decide. Now, from a technical standpoint, how we've resolved this. We know that UNESCO has said that use of AI from 13 on is best. OpenAI has also said that that ChatGPT should be only used from age 13 and up. Now, the reality is you have kids in elementary schools playing in early years of middle school playing video games that already have AI in them. They're using Snapchat that uses AI. So trying to put on blinders and say, you know what, until they're 13, we're not going to touch this. Not sure that's the best approach. So the way that we've technically resolved this was we've implemented OpenAI's API through Microsoft Azure because Microsoft put some additional security features. And at that point, if you're old enough to use Microsoft in any way, shape, or form, like most people are using Word from pretty early age when they start typing. If you're old enough to use the Microsoft suite, you're old enough to use our school implementation of things. Now, it just means that for students, we have an extra set of filters around everything. Maybe your result will be better if you're interacting with ChatGPT directly, for sure. But we would rather be safe than sorry. We would rather put extra filters and extra guardrails, especially on things like image generation. This can go wrong really fast. So we just make sure that from a technical perspective, we have our filters, Microsoft has their filters, and with that, we really try to minimize the risk that is there.
Yeah, I think that resonates. And to your point, I mean, I definitely understand some of the regulations that I think many companies have put for the 13 years or older, but I think your point holds. And I hear this tension too in a lot of spaces that I'm in, is like we want to train students for the world that they are going to be inheriting. and yet we're saying that you have to be able to hit a certain age before you actually have the opportunity to get some at bats here, right? And being able to do it. And I think your scaffolded approach here of saying, well, we have found a way for students, an ethical way for students to be able to access some of these tools earlier on, but again, with training wheels, right? Not just like the full on bring it on type of tools here. I think that's something that a lot of teachers have probably been looking for, right? Some of those like more middle ground solutions for how they might be able to give, like I said, their students at bats.
100%. And at the end of the day, we want the schools and teachers to decide for themselves. We just want to give the technical enablement that makes it legally okay to do so as far as the technical implementation goes. Everything else, we're not telling you what to do. We're just giving you the tools and the ability to do it should you want to. But this discussion also took place at UNESCO's Digital Week last week, where people are saying waiting till 13, that's not realistic. Kids are exposed to this every day. We need a better solution around this. So I think there's a lot of awareness around the world that like it needs to be addressed early on. This is not something that we can just put on the back burner until someone turns 13 years of age.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned earlier in the shared spaces, because everything is controlled by the teacher, you can enable tools, but you can also disable them again for student use. So they will not have internet access to everything until it becomes impossible for you to know what everybody's doing. But actually, you have the ability to select individual tools that are required or that you want students to use for a specific project, and then you turn them off again afterwards. So it's very specific and controlled usage by the students, and the teachers can guide them through this process. So that's been working really well.
And so to that point, Katharina, let's go further down that road. What I'm curious about is we've been talking about, I think, some of the capabilities here, but let's go deeper. What can students actually do in these shared spaces? Like what are actually some of the type of features? I'm also curious to hear in some of the conversations that you've had with some of the teachers that have actually used these tools. Like what are some of their use cases? Like what are some of the ways that they've actually successfully used shared spaces in their classrooms?
So the shared spaces are basically just a virtual classroom where you can share projects and assignments with your students. You can use this digital tools. You can have digital worksheets, surveys, anything that our platform offers. You can integrate it. You can share links and so on and so forth. But in terms of AI tools, students can access different parts of our tool catalog, and one of the most interesting ones for me, and that we've received a lot of feedback and excitement about, is you can create your own assistants on our platform, and you can add your own background knowledge. So with that, you greatly reduce the risk of so-called hallucinations, and you can give students exactly the information and the material that you want them to work with. But it's all been uploaded as background knowledge, and they can learn it through a conversation, or you can create an assistant that is like a historical expert on some in some field or whatever your use case might be. And that is a great feature that students can use, that you can use together with your students and explore it together. Of course, you can also just share the regular AI chat, which is just a basic language model that you want to use with them. We have AI supported worksheets. We have transcription tools. We have a PDF chat. We have a lot of different opportunities, things that you can use. I also really like the collaborative text editor because their students can work together and you can see how they're working on an assignment together again without having to create their own accounts or logging in. So those are just some of the examples. Image generator, obviously, is also accessible to the students. Ksenia, did I forget anything?
No, I think you've covered it. I mean, the customizable assistants, they really allow for teachers to tailor whatever they put out for their students to the curriculum, to the subject, to the topic, to their way of teaching. And they can just turn that on in this virtual classroom in the shared space. They don't even need to turn on the regular chat GPT or the image generator. They can go with the path of reduced risk and just turn this thing that has been trained on a very specific curriculum and go with that. At the end of the day, we just want to enable the teacher to have the freedom to do what they think is right for their students because we don't know your students or your students best.
Awesome. And Have you all been hearing of any stories or successful use cases of teachers that have used these tools, and how have they been using them?
We have seen thousands of these customized assistants created. So some that have been created, we've actually approached the teachers or they've approached us and we've collaborated with them to make it available for other teachers to use. But just on the statistics, we see how many of these have been created just from the technical perspective. And it is clear that this feature is something that is very, very popular with educators. I mean, in a way, if you think about it, it just gives you a whole new way to scale up if you are rolling out a new curriculum for your school. You, as a professional development coordinator or the curriculum coordinator, you can program this, you can train it on the new curriculum, roll it out to all the teachers at your school who have signed up for a free Fobizz account, and they have access to it automatically. And they can then, based on this new curriculum, based on these new standards, for example, can generate new worksheets, can create new lesson plans in minutes. I mean, it really reduces the workload if you're trying to start somewhere new, go with something brand new for your school. I think that's a huge, huge time saving and efficiency assistance for the educators.
Yeah, and I mentioned before this certification training that we do. And part of that is like a project where teachers, participants create their own lesson using our digital teaching board, or they create their own assistant. And in the last round for the German educators, so many people chose the option of creating their own assistant. And the use cases have been amazing. Like things that I hadn't even thought of before for maybe exercises that you can do with your students. Like, okay, my students are in a bad mood right now. I have this little assistant, and I can just say, ask it to give me 5 minutes breaks of like exercise that my students can do to get out of this mood and get maybe they're tired and I want to wake them up. Okay, here's some icebreakers that have been specifically tailored to my students' interests, to their age group. So this is just one of the many examples that people have come up with, and I've been really enjoying seeing these results.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to just hear about all of those features and that it's landing for a lot of teachers. I think between the way that those tools have guardrails, the versatility of applications that students have access to, the fact, I mean, to me, the game changer. I know. I think I was talking to you, Ksenia, about this, or maybe it was you. Actually, I don't know. It was one of you a while ago where you had first introduced me to the assistant feature. I mean, I really felt like that was a game changer that students at this age could actually have access to developing AI assistants because just in my experience over the last 6 months here, those for a lot of the like major companies who have these type of applications, they've been restricting those quite a bit, right? Like we saw GPTs as an example of as an available feature on the OpenAI platform, but those had been only available to plus users for a very long time, and now that is no longer the case. But again, there's still the restrictions here for folks obviously having the age restriction, and so the idea that students could actually have access to even practice some of that computational thinking. Think about where would it actually be very helpful to not only have a one-off prompting experience, but I'm thinking a little bit longer term of like an assistant who can really impact my experience. That is, I think, not only a line of thinking, but I think a potentially a type of tool that could be really helpful. I can imagine even if I was a teacher, as an example, one assignment I might even develop to go real meta here is I might even create an assignment where I'm saying the assignment is I want every single one of the students in my class to create an AI assistant that solves a problem in the world and just see what they come up with. And that's the assignment, right? Because I think you then give them an opportunity to think about a problem in the world that they're really excited to solve, right? How they might go about it, how they might use technology to solve it. They then start to like understand how an AI assistant is a little bit different. It feels like it would spiral in a lot of those skills and the types of things that we would want students to be able to understand. And like I said, in a way that feels safe, feels scaffolded, right? It's not kind of throwing them out into the wild with some of these other types of agents on different sites where they may have drastically different permissions or different capabilities on that front. So again, that continues to be one of the changing features that I see when I think about some of the tools that they have access to here.
Yeah, and I think it also encourages the critical thinking skills and lets them work through problems by themselves or in groups where they can work with this and also test it. And I really like this image of, okay, what information do I actually need to provide to an assistant to receive the output that I wanted? What background knowledge might be useful in this case? Because it also, like, this is how we work to some extent, right? I cannot give you a very good answer on a question that I know nothing about. So why do we expect this tool to be able to do that? I need to know what to tell it to do. I need to be really good at expressing myself and explaining what I'm working towards. These are communication skills. These are interactive skills that can all be worked on just with this in a very playful way.
And at the end of the day, no matter what students are putting it in, or you as a school on perhaps separately licensed curriculum, this is all in a way being saved in a bubble and then tossed out. It's not going to be used for model training. It's not going to be ending up somewhere where it shouldn't be. So you really have a way to experiment, but in a secure way.
There's a lot of folks today that work in schools, that work in higher education, who have yet to start their AI journeys, or they're just dipping their toes in the water, right? They got a foot in there, but not really quite in there yet. With everything that you've learned, the conversations that you've had, the folks you've collaborated with, what advice might you offer those folks, the folks who are just starting, maybe have the toe in the water, but they haven't gone in yet? What would you offer them?
I think I would just say have an open mind and be curious about all these new things. It's exciting and you can experiment with what works for you and what doesn't. And I keep thinking about, like, I see things, I see new options. I keep thinking, this use case would have worked perfectly with my 10th graders back in 2016. And so there's just a world to explore. And that is very exciting. But at the same time, I would not put the pressure on anyone to actually, like, there's way too many tools out there. You can't look at all of them and you really don't have to. It's just really about figuring out, keep an open mind, keep an open ear, and listen to what people are talking about and see what works for you. Ask questions, remain critical, make sure you know what's happening to your data and to your students' data. But also don't be discouraged just because you feel like everyone else is already all the way in the water and they know exactly what they're doing. They probably don't. And also, this is a very new thing still. So you can figure out for yourself the ways that AI can be used to make learning more effective for your students and how it can help you in your work. So yeah, I think have an open mind. Stay curious.
Absolutely. I think for teachers who have a limited amount of time, I think the basis, just understand the basics of how it works. There are going to be hundreds of thousands of tools and it's going to evolve continuously and the tools are going to get better and they will get more innovative. Keeping up with it is a task on its own. But start out with understanding the foundations of AI, the foundations of how large language models work, just so you understand the basics of it and you kind of have a basic sense of the risks and opportunities associated with using AI. I think that's a foundation. Then for administrators, give your teachers time to experiment with this. Please don't expect your teachers, on top of their busy day, on top of their workload, to on their own carve out the time for this. So please try to facilitate this as much as possible. Make this as easy as possible for them to enter this space and to start this experimentation process.
If folks are really excited in hearing our conversation today, interested in reaching out to you all, interested in using the Fobizz platform, how might you invite them to either connect with you, hop onto Fobizz? How do we do that?
The easiest thing is just go to our website and register for free. You're going to be able to play around with everything. You'll have unlimited usage. Now, if you have any questions, you can always email support@fobizz.com or email myself or Katharina, Ksenia@fobizz.com, Katharina@fobizz.com. Contact us. We want to hear from you. If you have questions, concerns, we're happy to talk to you. Our website is www.fobizz.com. If it defaults to German, just switch to English and then you should be good to go. You can register, create an account within literally a minute and start using the platform.
Ksenia, Katharina, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Been
much for
very
having us
helpful.
here.